just a very short snippet, something that's not shared with the reporters. It's a piece that Ray used to play so beautifully. It's a Renaissance dance, very special.
God, we invite your presence here as we celebrate Ray's life and mourn his passing. Please bless us as we spend this time together. Amen.
here today. I'm grateful to honor Ray's life today by sharing a piece of the world we shared. As Ray's little sister, I always looked up to him. He was my only sibling. He spent years teaching me, protecting me, and yes, teasing me. He turned it into an art form. Our family unit became very strong because we grew up without extended family surrounding us. It was, for the most part, only the four of us. In 1936, our parents were married during a solemn nuptial mass in El Paso, Texas. Shortly, they departed for Los Angeles to begin a new life, and so my father could pursue a musical career. He was classically trained as a piano. Ray was born at Queen of Angels Hospital in Los Angeles on May 25th, 1940. Legend has it because he was born 3 weeks early. He spent his first 2 weeks sleeping in a dresser drawer until his nursery was completed. In 1944, our parents decided to leave Los Angeles. My father was a mechanical engineer. He had accepted a job at Boeing Aircraft Company. He moved first to the area to establish a temporary home, and Ray and my mother joined him on a very long train ride a few weeks later. Another family story. Ray ordered a cheese sandwich. He was 4, and on the start of the trip, and he saved it all 3 days to give it to my father. But they met him at the train here in Loma. In Seattle, mother went to an Adventist doctor. She shared with the doctor that she was trying to find a more healthy lifestyle for the family. So he referred her to an Adventist naturopathic doctor, Dr. Burleson. A few months later, my mom became interested to know more about the Adventist church and began instruction at home. My father didn't initially seem to be paying attention, but he was listening, and he did become involved later on. She was baptized the next year, and my dad the year after that. Ray began school at Whittier Elementary School in Seattle. I joined the family in 1948 when he was 7 and a half. By 3rd grade, he started school at Seattle Junior Academy. He also began clarinet lessons about that same time. He studied with Ronald Phillips, who was the principal clarinetist at the Seattle Symphony. In fact, he was there for 56 years. Ray enjoyed playing, but had to be prodded to practice. Finally, his dad said the instrument would be put away and lessons stopped until he started practicing. So they did that for a couple months, and that's what happened. That was a valuable lesson at an early age. He resumed lessons soon after. He eventually joined the band at SJA and even performed in the Seattle Youth Symphony at Volunteer Park. He was probably about 10 or 11 by that time. Ray got his first bike at 10. Bicycling was something he would enjoy for many decades. One night he left his bike out in front of the house instead of putting it away. Someone stole the bike. Another life lesson. It was decided he would have to earn half the money to replace the bike. He canvassed the neighborhood looking for babysitting jobs and lawn mowing jobs. Finally, the day came, and he went to Green Lake Bicycle Shop and chose his new bike. When I started SJA in 1st grade, Ray was in 9th grade. Our mother went back to school that year. She would pick us up after school unless she had to stay late. In that case, she gave us bus fare to catch the bus at the bottom of Queen Anne Hill. One day we started at 3, waited till 3:45 and she wasn't there. So Ray said she must have forgotten to give us bus fare and we should walk home. What? I was in first grade. We walked forever, it seemed like, and finally we crossed the Ballard Bridge going up 15th Avenue. We were about 3 blocks from home, and we saw Mom's car going in the opposite direction toward the school on the other side of the road. We were jumping up and down and waving, and she never saw us. So we finally made it home. We fell immediately asleep. Sometime later, she returned home, and she was so distraught, imagine. I'll never forget that I was tired, but never scared because he was with me. 2 years later, Ray left for Auburn Academy. After that, he was only home during summers. During the school year, we would go to the academy and visit him and see him play in the academy band or attend recitals to see him perform as a soloist or in a chamber music group. He still pursued clarinet lessons with 2 other Auburn classmates during his Auburn years. My parents would drive to Auburn to the school to pick him up, and the other boys as well. Take them to the lessons, give them dinner, and then drive them back. His senior year, he joined the choir at the Sylvan Forest, so that was a new thing for him. Every summer he worked as a hospital orderly, first at the county hospital and then at doctor's hospital. Most of the time he worked graveyard shifts, so during the day after he had slept a few hours, sometimes we go to downtown to the Seattle Library and we check out musical scores. We would play along with the LP recordings, played a lot of Mozart, as you might guess, and in particular some chamber music. Ray on the clarinet, and by that time was playing the flute. That was something we always shared, a musical bond. Before Ray started Walla College, he and his buddy, Charlie Pitts, decided they wanted to go on a short backpacking trip to Mount Rainier. My parents picked up Charlie at his home, and we dropped them off at the beginning of one of the trails. I'm not sure which one they went on. It was dark already by the time we headed home. We were not even a mile away from the drop-off site, and we saw something crossing the road. It was a mountain lion. My mom did everything she could to convince Dad to turn around and pick up those boys, but he insisted, no, they're going to be fine. Let them do this. That ended up to be quite an adventure and a test of their survival skills, especially in a mostly wet stint there. Backpacking gear was not very sophisticated in those days, and sure enough, they ran out of food. They were down to a couple of unsavory choices in the food category, and they ran into another hiker. He realized they were tired and hungry, and so he gave them, since it was his last day of camping, everything he had left. And he even shared his lunch that he'd made, some fish, with them, and they were able to make it through. Finally, we set out home and to meet them in a designated area. And we were there for a while driving around, and we couldn't find them. We saw only 2 bums there, and we drove past them, and then we realized that was them. They looked so awful. My mother was appalled. And anyway, it was a great experience for them. Ray started Walla Walla College in 1958. Even though he pursued a degree in the sciences, he always managed to include singing in the chorale and playing in the symphony as a part of his curriculum. In his freshman year, the chorale came to Green Lake Church, where we attended church to perform. Part of the program included selections from Handel's Messiah.
We were stunned to hear Ray sing a solo for the first time. The tenor solo was Every Valley. They concluded the concert with Mozart's Requiem Mass in D minor. Ray was part of the mixed vocal quartet movement near the end of the Requiem, the Benedictus. Again, we were stunned to hear him sing. We had no idea. He graduated in 1962 with a BS degree, majoring in zoology and a minor in chemistry. He had already made the decision to attend Walla Walla College to pursue a master's degree in biology. He spent a life-changing summer at the Walla Walla College Biological Station in Rosario Beach. It was there he met the love of his life, Nikki. He was excited for us to meet her, and she didn't disappoint. She was fun, full of energy, and shared his love of science. They dated that following year and became engaged. Nikki received her degree in biology on June the 7th, 1964, had her birthday on the 8th, and they got married June 14th. It was a very busy week. We were all thrilled the next year to welcome Ramon III. It was such an exciting time for our family. We were fortunate to have them in Seattle after he received his master's degree for a couple years. He was working at the research center at Virginia Mason Research Center. While there, he worked with Dr. Merrill Spencer, who became a true mentor to him in so many ways. Dr. Spencer was a pivotal figure in developing and utilizing Doppler ultrasound technology for clinical applications. They did groundbreaking scientific studies on the remains of Namu the whale that were helpful in their research. He encouraged Ray to pursue a PhD at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So they left, and they finished the first year of his PhD. And my parents and I drove from Walla Walla, where they picked me up from college, all the way to North Carolina in the summer of '69. I was lucky enough to be able to extend that week's visit into a summer's-long experience, staying with Ray and Nikki and Ramon until school began in the fall. It was so fun to spend time with their little family. We watched the moon landing that July. Ramon was 4, and he was all about the lunar module. He knew everything about it. They were in Basel, Switzerland for 2 years after he decided to do a postdoctoral study there. It was such a wonderful experience for their family. We were living in Sacramento at the time, Ken and I, and we were unable to visit them. They sent frequent postcards from all the wonderful places they had experienced all throughout Europe. I still have all of them. I think Nikki has them now. And we went over them as we prepared for today. It was really ironic that we didn't see each other for actually a few years. But at the end of the day, eventually, unbeknownst to us, we both purchased homes that were literally blocks away from each other. And so that was really fun to have them so close. Through the years, we were able to share many holidays and birthdays. They were there when our 3 children were born. Even though our lives became more complicated and busy, I knew he was always there for me. I could ask questions about music, science, health issues, our family history, just so much. He kept active throughout most of his life in biking, skiing, hiking, and his latest love of sailing with his great friends. Music always remained a source of joy, playing and listening. We learned a great deal about music from Dad, but it was Ray that introduced me to Prokofiev's Piano Concerto No. 3. in C major, Vladimir Horowitz album of the Beethoven piano sonatas, and then there was Dave Brubeck and Time Out. He has lived a very well-loved life, and we will always miss him. Not sure how to get out of here.
What do you see about your dad? He really was a best friend. We had so many experiences together, so many things that we shared. Our love of music, our love of sports, our love of photography. He was a wonderful dad to have because everything that we had was a learning experience, my mother included. Was always something that was beneficial, always something that was instructional. Spent the evenings at dinner talking about something new, science related. And of course, everything was, we could always figure in somewhere of how we could increase surface area for everything that we did. Some of my fondest memories, of course, we were living in Europe. Got to travel a lot of really interesting places, a lot of wonderful sights. One of the most favorite things that I had was we had large breaks, at least for my school. We had 2-hour lunches, and there were one days, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, that I really didn't have anything in the afternoon. Dad had 2-hour lunches, so we'd come back. Mom would have some picnic lunch. We'd get in the car, we'd drive 20 minutes. We'd be in France. We'd find some old castle with monkeys throwing rocks off of it. We'd have our lunch. We'd find some other chapel or some other mission. But it was always something that was the wonderful, wonderful aspect of exploring and just being together. He taught us to ski in Switzerland. Can't think of a better place to learn how to ski. Had issues of that when I would go skiing, my understanding of how the trails were, I would see something that said good. So I'm like, okay, this is good, not realizing that this was a black diamond. I'm 8 years old. Hey, let's go down this. I think actually I skied the men's downhill at Innsbruck, Austria during a blizzard, which Mom was reminding me that they had to send the ski patrol looking for me. But just a wonderful, experience of just being together as a family. The other thing with Switzerland is that's actually, I think, a little bit more where Dad's true love of music started to come into place. Being in areas where early music that's where it was founded, he spent a lot of time with his advisor, who was also a very heavy into early music. We would go to their house for dinner, and then we would spend the evening playing music. He learned recorders. He bought his first recorder that was there. One of our fondest memories, actually, of that was we were at one of the suppers and got done eating, and then we were ushered into this bedroom off to the side because one of Hans Rudy's, his supervisor, his good friend Heinz Holliger, was coming over to practice. So we got to hide in a room in the house listening to one of the greatest oboists I think ever on the face of the planet practice. He got, again, very heavily into singing there, was in with the Basler Kammerchor that was there. Again, fulfilled more of his music that he had. When we came back to the U.S., wonderful running into Ted Cheek, Harry Wong. The early music groups that we had with that was just actually, I think, high points of his life. He was an avid sportsman. He loved to backpack. Both he and Mom were sponsors of the backpacking club. So again, we do stuff over the weekends, and then during the summers, we'd go take long hikes up into the Cascades and on the Don Muir Trail. So we had a lot of lots of summer things, though, again, coming back as bums from being out in the wilderness. Very heavily again into skiing. He was an avid golfer. Actually made clubs for a while, which was always fun. I came and played with him for a while. We really connected also with cycling. Got involved in creating a couple of clubs in Loma, Linda. Did some wonderful bike rides together, Tecate Ensenada, which is a infamous 100-mile ride in Mexico. We were always laughing about the conditions of the roads, saying, are they new? They said, yes, it's new, but it was new from the revolution, not from, any of the current stuff. So you climb these really, really tall mountains, and then you would descend on a washboard road, trying to do your best to hang on for dear life. A really fun trip that we had, it was actually probably one of the last trips that we took together in cycling at that point, was San Francisco to LA. So we flew up to San Francisco. There were about 5 of us, and we would spend about 5 days taking 100 miles apiece, coming down Coast Highway, going through Big Sur. I was racing at the time, so for me it was like, okay, I would leave with everybody in the morning. We'd get out of town, and then I would say, okay, I'm here to ride my race or ride my training ride. I'd ride for an hour or two, turn around, ride back to find them, and then ride with them for about an hour, and then go. So while they did 500 miles, I think I did about 1,800. Some of the last stuff, as Vicki mentioned, his love of sailing. Late in life, but full of friendships. He was an avid photographer. Some of the 2 memories I was actually talking to Mom about this morning, we were in Rome at the Sistine Chapel, and the guide that we had with us, Dad was trying to take some pictures of the ceiling. And you grab one here, and the guy that was with us said, no. Put your camera in the middle of the floor. Shoot everybody to the side. I don't know how many people were in the chapel at the time, but it's like literally going through, pushing everybody against the wall so Dad could take his pictures. He would take one, and he's like, no, take another one. And he's like, no. And he's like, when are you going to be back? Take another one. Another one, which of course I think we both saw Dad's life flash in front of our eyes, was we were on the Champs-Élysées. It was at night, and it was a beautiful picture for the Arc de Triomphe, and he was standing in the middle of the intersection, the red light, taking as many pictures as he could take. We'd see the light turn green, and he's still standing out in the street. So again, near and dear to our hearts. I don't know if I can get through this part, but the music stuff that we had together. Hearing him sing was just a wonder. Playing with him in orchestra was beyond inspirational. We did a lot of things in the summer. We'd travel up to Seattle. We do clarinet trios with Grandpa on the piano, Dad on the clarinet, me on the bassoon. One of the last times Grandpa, I think, came down to visit us in California, both Dad and I were in a symphony, and we had a rehearsal that night. And it was, Grandpa, do you want to come to rehearsal with us? And he's like, oh, this is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm going to go sit at a rehearsal with my son and my grandson. And we were very quick to point out that it was a dress rehearsal because we were both wearing black socks as homage to Arthur Rubinstein. But he came in and was like, I don't know if he was happy or upset, but he says, here's my son playing the clarinet, sitting straight as a board, playing the clarinet. And here's my grandson sitting next to him, slouched in his chair with his legs crossed. Says, talking about the spectrum. Fond memories of playing together. We did a Mozart Sinfonia Concertante here, playing soloists with my dad. We did, I think it's now about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the Mozart Serenades for Winds. And it was like, well, we could have had better people playing, but it was more of the fact of we had friends that were playing with us. That was the focus. The hardest one and the nearest to my heart is the first time I did the Mozart Requiem with him, and he did this tenor solo. The bassoon and the tenor weave throughout the entire Requiem, and I could not listen to my father sing because it was too powerful. I had to listen to what the tone qualities were to be able to capture and blend with that. And still to this day, with that recording, I cannot listen to it. He was a very good father, and he was a fantastic husband. He's been a good grandfather. I will very much miss him.
Qui tollis peccata mundi, dona eis requiem, dona eis requiem. Peccata mundi, dona eis requiem, dona eis requiem. Agnus Dei, Agnus Dei, Agnus Dei, Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, dona eis requiem, dona eis requiem. Sempite aeternam. Requiem. Thank you.
So it was about 15 years ago that my brother-in-law, Kevin Lang, and I decided it was time in our life that we should start sailing. And it wasn't long after that that we joined a fractional timeshare organization in Newport Harbor. After I'd signed all the papers, I was sitting at the breakfast nook, and it kind of dawned on me that I couldn't sail the boat by myself. I'd need some people to help me. And I looked up at my wife, who was working in the kitchen, and mentioned that to her, and she said, kind of like, well, what'd you think? You got the boat, you get the people. So I reached out to my brother, who found out that Ray Gonzalez had an interest in sailing. And my next door neighbor, Rick Murray, was a longtime partner with Bill Patton, who he knew liked to sail and knew a lot about sailing. And not long after that, Darrell Retzer expressed an interest. He kind of partially retired from the ministry in sailing. So all of a sudden I had muscle and brains, and we headed out. Over the years, there have been a number of really great people that have joined us and have discovered the unique pleasures sailing on the Pacific Ocean. I'd like to ask the group of guys who sailed with Ray to stand, if they would. Now you can see what mighty men of the sea look like. Thank you. So the question is, what do mighty men of the sea do while they're sailing? Well, as soon as we get out of the docking area out into the harbor, generally the first thing we do is eat. And we don't get started sailing till 12:30 or 1, so everybody's hungry. And we manage to gobble down all the food before we get to the breakwater. And then there's time. There's still 3 or 4 hours left out on the ocean for men to do what men like to do: tell jokes, tell stories. I'm sure some of them are true, I don't know. Sometimes we sleep. There's one photograph of everybody in the cockpit, sound asleep. But we have cruise control, so it's not a problem. You know, when you sail on weekdays, there are no other boats out there. Out of 10,000 boats in Newport Harbor, we alone would be out there sometimes. Sometimes our sailing discussion would delve into deep philosophical topics. One of these was, you know, we only see dolphins when the sea is calm. Why don't we see dolphins when there's wind and waves? And one of the guys said, well, I think the dolphins don't like those waves slapping them in the face. Kind of made sense for a second. Anyways, and what's been mentioned is that, in my estimation, he truly was a modern-day Renaissance man. You know, I think a lot of us know a little about a lot of things, but Ray knew a lot about a lot of things. and in the sanctuary choir, he had this sought-after, gorgeous tenor voice. I had a run-of-the-mill baritone voice, but I made it. And so as a teacher that taught basic science physiology to medical students, and he was also a PhD research scientist. I found that very interesting because I've had many sleepless nights wondering what it is that causes small vessel, smooth muscle to contract. As was mentioned, Ray, one of his passions was cycling. One time he told me he got the greatest satisfaction in cycling after completing a long, steep, uphill climb. And I thought to myself, that's the last thing on planet Earth that I'd ever want to do is ride a bike up a long, steep hill. And I remember him, he liked to repair bikes or build bikes. And he talked to me about how he just finished adjusting the tension on the spokes of his bicycle wheels. And I kind of nodded in agreement, like I did that on a regular basis. I don't actually even own a bike. And I thought spokes were just, spokes. Anyway, one of his memories that he mentioned several times, Ramon, was that bicycle trip that you took over several days. And I know those memories meant a lot to him. Guns. Guns were a big thing to Ray. He liked guns. And he would go to gun shops and look at guns. And at one point, he saw this gun in a gun shop, and it was kind of an antique, handheld World War II German gun. And it just caught his fancy. But he knew Nicky would neither approve of the gun nor the price. So the man of stature decided he would not do that. But, temptation is always there. And it kept calling him back to that store. He would look at that gun and he would say, no, I'm not going to do it. But finally, he succumbed to sin. He bought the gun. But of course, he was reluctant to tell Nicky, naturally. But he did tell his sailing companions out in the ocean this secret. And now, I know in your heart of hearts you're wondering, what other secrets were told by these men of the sea while sailing? Well, I can tell you one was how to make the perfect white sauce. Yeah. Ray was an avid cook. He liked being in the kitchen. And he would have this system for making coffee, which I found out was quite different than what you get with the Keurig machine. and he could fry an egg to perfection. There was a special way he fried it. Sometimes our discussions would lapse into more esoteric areas, like the 5 French mother sauces. The 5 French mother sauces. And one of those is a white sauce. And I actually, it may surprise you, have made on occasion a white sauce. But I wanted to know just what Ray's technique was for the perfect white sauce. And so he told me, and he said, first you melt the butter, then you add an equal amount of flour, and you mix it together. And that forms a roux. I thought he said root, like the root of the sauce. He said, no, Dennis, it's a roux. It's spelled R-O-U-X. And it's in French. In France, it's called a bechamel sauce. So a white sauce is a bechamel sauce. And part of the process, you create a roux. Well, and then you add milk, warm milk. You stir it until it thickens. That's the white sauce. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. And I asked him about it a couple more times while we were out sailing, just to kind of repeat the details of how he made a white sauce. Partly because I wanted to know just for sure how it was done. I wanted to do it right. But partly because when we got to the roux part, I like to ask him questions like, and in a very chef-like tone, what do you think a roux would be like if you added mayonnaise or ketchup? Just so he would have this horrified look on his face. That look brought me great joy. One time, it happened that the two of us took the boat out by ourselves, and we sailed down toward Huntington Harbor and back. And as we were pulling into the slip, the boat drifted over to the side of the slip up against the dock. And I gave it a little throttle, and the further in we got, the tighter that boat was smashed up against the dock. And I thought, what uncanny natural force is causing the ocean to push us up against the dock? I had to give it almost full throttle, and you should have heard the screeching and the scratching as we got the boat into the dock. And I was completely baffled. And then we stepped off the boat, and I looked up, and I realized we hadn't taken down the mainsail. Now, in my defense, the canopy that covers the cockpit that you're sitting in completely obscures your view of the mainsail. Now, there's always a few hair splitters, and they'll say, well, you actually did put up the mainsail, and you sailed all day with the mainsail, and when you came into the harbor, you were sitting in a sailboat. Well, for non-sailors, you need to know that it is important to take the sail down, because if you don't, as you try to pull into the slip, you may catch a very nasty gust of wind, and it can blow the boat off the course and directly into your neighbor's very expensive yacht and some of his neighbors, and you'll be settling insurance claims for quite a while. But we'd gotten in without damage. And I said to Ray, we have got to get this sail down. This is a huge snafu. And so we hustled around and lowered the sail. And, have you ever seen somebody do something really dumb, dumber than the things you do? It kind of brings a smile to your face. It actually makes me feel joyous on the inside. And so as I looked around to see if there was anybody that had been watching this whole episode, I noticed there were 5 guys on different docks that seemed to be having just the best time. I found it very gratifying that we provided them with all the joy and laughter they needed for that day. Anyway, looking forward to the future, I read that in heaven there's a sea of glass. I'm not sure how the sailing will go on a sea of glass, but I'm sure our friend Ray will be standing there in the front of the line, ready to go.
Memorial services can have parts of it that are joyous. But they're difficult too. because we're also saying goodbye. And that's a tough thing. But there are three gifts that we give to each other when we share time like this together. And the first gift is the gift of remembering. And that we're doing very well. Very well. I met Ray and Nikki during my first year as an associate pastor at this church. I had a responsibility to talk to some junior high kids, and I wanted somebody to explain to them about communion from a scientific point of view. When you take a wafer, when you drink a little grape juice, what actually happens to it? And so I asked one of my colleagues, who should I ask to do that? She said, oh, Ray and Nikki. And we made that presentation together. That was 35 years ago. A few years later, after I left my work here, we joined a Bible study with Ray and Nikki and several others. And that was about 25 years ago. And that Bible study is still going today. You've heard about Ray as a scientist. And if you've read his resume, you know he was a very good scientist. And he was a scientist in the sense that everything he did, he was curious about. He wanted to know about it. He wanted to know more about it. And as Dennis said, he knew a lot about everything. And in fact, when we talk together, I think the most common response that he ever gave to me was, and you know why that is, right? And then, and that could follow almost anything. And then he would start to explain the physiological response in the body and the different parts of the body and how it all worked together and how this took place and that took place. And it wasn't just in his chosen field of study and teaching, but geography, flora, fauna, art, history, geology, the Bible, architecture, music, and baseball, and how it all came together. Ray and I share a trait that for other people can at times be annoying. We both like to talk a lot. And one of my favorite memories was there was a time in my life when I commuted from Bishop, which is about a 4-hour drive north of here, down to Loma Linda, home, and then back up to work at Bishop. And sometimes I could pick up a ride from someone, and Ray happened to be driving by in his car, which he loved, and he said he would give me a ride. And so we had 4 hours, just the two of us. We didn't have to compete with anybody else. It was just the two of us, and we got this wonderful rhythm going where I would be taking my breath and he would be talking. And then he would be taking his breath and I would be talking. And we talked about that road. And we talked about the towns on that road. And we talked about the businesses on that road. We talked about the people we knew on that road and the different stories that they had on that road. And the mining and the geology and the plane crashes. It was like a competition, which he won. I will never forget Ray. And we will never forget Ray. The second gift that we share is the gift of hope. The Bible says that to inform us about this process of death in Thessalonians, that we do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope. We have a hope. We share that hope with Ray. The interesting part of this text, though, for me, is the part of the text that talks about grief. It doesn't say that we don't grieve. We do grieve. It's proper to grieve. It is part of what helps us to heal. So we grieve. And we hope. I'll bet many of you learned this text while you were growing up. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house, there are many rooms. If that were not so, I would have told you. I'm going there to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may be where I am. What a lovely promise. A promise of reunion, that God wants to be with us again. And also with those we love. The last text is in Revelation, talking about a new heaven and a new earth. The part of the text that I like best is verse 4 in chapter 21, where it says, He will, God, wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. So not only hope for reunion, but hope for healing. There's a third gift that we give each other at events like this, and that is the gift of grace. When we think of grace, we often think of it in terms of what God does for us, lost sinners that God reaches out to and treats us with merit as if we deserved it. But there's another part of grace that the Bible talks about, that is the community of grace. This is where we treat each other with grace, with dignity, with love. You know, Ray was a good man, but he was not a perfect man. You heard a wonderful recorder at the beginning of the program. Ray loved recorders. When he and Nikki left Switzerland, they bought a number of recorders to take home with them. And when they got to the customs, the custom man said, "Do you have anything with you?" And they said, "Well, we have recorders." And he said, "Tape recorders." And Ray said, no, these are instruments, instruments that people play, beautiful instruments. These are not tape recorders. And the customs man said to him, well, you do know that musical instruments have a 50% tax, but electronic instruments have no tax at all. Tape recorders? And Ray said, yes. Tape recorders. But Ray was a good man. And he was filled with good intentions, wonderful talent, and a good heart. What some of you may not know is how concerned he was about truth and about justice, and about people being treated right. He was concerned about people with which he had no interface, no connection. And he was also very concerned about people he loved. He was part of our community of grace. If you are here today, you are part of Ray's community of grace. And we are part of that together. And you may be here because you're family. You may be here because you're part of a 25-year-old Bible study group. You may be here because you're an old man sailing the sea. You may be here because you sang with them in a choir or played with them in an orchestra or a small group. You may be here because you were a faculty member with them or a research partner or an admirer of his research. You may be here because you are a friend. But wherever you're here, you're part of this community of grace. So while we grieve, losing Ray's friendship, fellowship, companionship, what sustains us through the tragedies of life that we endure is grace and that community of grace. So we celebrate Ray and we continue our lives in his community of grace.
instructions?
After we sing
All right.
first verse.
Go ahead. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. I'd like to join, or would invite you all to sing with us all 5 verses of Amazing Grace. The words will be shown up front. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. The Lord has promised good to me, His word my home secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Come this way, come this way.
Shall we pray? May the grace of God go with you and be with you, now and forevermore. Amen.
kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
I understand there'll be some light refreshments, and we can spend a little time together.